Hello and welcome back, everybody, for another Union Arena Deck Tech. Today we've got TioGDX back with us, and we're diving into a deck that's all about risk, reward, and explosive late game pressure. SAO Goddess. This is a deck that lets you lose life for powerful effects, then flips the game when you hit 4 life or less by making your raiders incredibly strong. It's a unique build that rewards calculated risk. So today we're going to break it all down: the curve, the key cards, when to pay life, and how to turn that pressure into wins. So let's start with the basics for players looking to understand this deck. Tio, how would you describe the overall identity of the SAO Goddess's deck? Is this an aggro deck? Is it a mid-range deck or a control deck?
I would say it's an aggro deck with mid-range tendencies, especially early game. Late game, you have more control, but early game, it tries its best, but the tools aren't super great.
Okay, so what role do you expect this deck to play in the majority of your matchups when you sit down? You go in blind, you don't know what your opponent's playing. What do you consider yourself? Are you the aggressive or are you the control?
It's still an aggressive deck, so either way, no matter what matchup I'm going against, I want to be aggressive. This isn't a deck where I want to sit around and wait for it to get to 4 life to start doing things. I want to whittle you down to where by the time I get to 4 life, I'm able to close games out.
All right, so what makes SAO Goddess stand out compared to other decks in the format?
It has a little more removal than other decks, with the Raid Sinon having snipe on play. So that's a big thing for their at 4 or less life, of course. It has a surprising good number of impact between the Sinon at 2 life and then UGO raid at all times if you get to raid it. And the biggest thing is that, again, it gets to take its own life for more resources. So think of like the yellow decks in One Piece, where you take your life to have more cards. Even Whitebeard in One Piece is similar as well for other card games, where you generally get to see more cards and more things out of your life because a trigger, instead of going to your sideline, will go in your hand and you take it. So.
Okay, so let's look at the deck laid out from 0 costs all the way to the top end. How would you describe the curve cost of this deck? Do you think it's something that just applies a lot of early pressure, or is it something that goes, here's my 4Ks and starts smashing?
So we like to apply some early pressure. We have some good bodies. We have a 2K Sinon, that's a 0 cost, which is nice. We have a 1 cost Asuna, that's 2,500. That becomes a 3K at 4 or less life. We have a two cost Sinon, which is a 3K, which you can discard a card. This is the mid-range tendencies I was talking about. You discard a card and they can snipe a 2K or less. So early on, if they have chumps in the front they want to start blocking with, you can just snipe them out immediately with this to start clearing a little more things out if they don't want to block.
Very strong. Now, looking at this seems like a bit of a puzzling deck. You have a lot of cards, but not a whole lot of names. It seems fairly consistent. Is this a deck that builds up synergies in names like many other decks do in this format? Or is this one that just so happens to have a lot of names that correlate with your raiders?
Just a lot of names that correlate with raiders. So again, you have a lot of good raid targets. For example, Asuna raid, you have 12 targets. You have the 0 cost, the 3 cost, the 11. Sinon is the lowest. I have my Sinon at 8 raid targets. Some even go as low as 6, running only 2 of these. I found sometimes you just don't find enough babies to raid on. So I like going up to 8 for that. And then Yujo's is only at 4. But this is the type of card where you don't mind if you play the raid card as a vanilla, just having a 4K body. If he doesn't impact, it's okay. His job is to be a 4K. It's not really to raid. If he raids, that's fantastic.
Very interesting. Now, this deck does have a unique element to it. It has the ability to play certain cards that make you lose life. Now, why would anybody want to do that?
So we have a few ways to take our own life. If you've played other decks such as maybe Speed of Sonic or any red One Punch, Boros is a similar card. Mosquito Girl. Yeah, that same card, by the way. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But cards like that where you've seen the benefit of taking my own life to get more cards helps a lot. And we have really two flavors of that in this deck. We have the color Asuna, which is take 1 life to draw 1 card. So not as good as Boros, but same ballpark. Or we have Lifa, which is what I use mostly to take my own life. This one, you turn this 4K into a 6K that cannot be chosen by characters' abilities, events, sites, triggers, anything. Untargetable 6K until the start of your next turn. So it becomes a giant wall that they cannot get around until the start of your next turn.
Yeah.
While at the same time getting you a life card for a resource.
Such a strong card. I really do think this Lifa might be one of the most overtuned power crept cards in our format right now. It just has so many lines of text. Always nullify impact, and you can't interact with me if I paid a life for a turn, but still, that's all you need, really. Looking at that, one thing I want to talk about in this deck is the unique personality of it. Now, all of your raiders do something different, but each of them are very unique and adds to the overall game plan of the deck. Can you walk us through what the purpose of each of these 3 raid cards are inside of your deck?
Sure. So from earliest to latest in the game, UGL can be used at any time. He's just a raid, impact, and nullify impact. I say just, but impact's a great keyword.
Yeah.
You only have 4 raid targets with baby UGL, so you may have many games where you don't see the target to raid on, which is okay. He's just a 4K body, which is the most important part of this deck is having more 4Ks. So you can play him at any time, play him early, play him late. Whenever you see it, if you can raid it, just go ahead and play him. It won't matter because late game, you need other raiders. Other raiders are more important late game anyway, so you can play him at any moment. You just see him, just throw him out. Next up would be Asuna. So Asuna always does things. She can be semi-useful early on. Her ability lets you rest a character in the front of any energy and rest one character with one energy or less in the back.
Ooh.
And then you can swap them if you like. You don't have to swap them, but you can. If you're a 4 or less life, those characters that are swapped cannot move until the start of your next turn. So you can really freeze things into place as a quasi removal control type, where you see a step thing and you move it to the front, but it can't move backwards, or you take a dangerous body in the front, put it in the back, have it stay back there for a turn, which will give you more time to get your defenses up. You can use this early on just for the quick rest or just to swap things out. Maybe mess up their energy line. If you have a 1-cost energy in the back that's going to be annoying, maybe one of their classic tap to give 2 energies or sideline that character people like playing. You can play this early to bring it up to the front, and now they won't get the value from giving possibly 2 energy from it. And now it'll just be a body in the way they'll either banish over or block with. This is usually safe for late, but you can do it early for some early swaps. Also, another card which you won't mind playing raw if you absolutely have to. It is still a 4K base. You'd like to save it for rating, but if you can't find one of your 11 Asunas for some reason, I've had times where I've had to play one. If you have like 3 in hand, I've just had to play one raw, and I'll read another one later. It's fine. And the latest raid is the Sinon. So Sinon has a lot of text. Actually, all the raids have a lot of text, but especially Sinon. So she actually doesn't really work until you have 4 or less life. So these are always safe for late game. At 4 or less life, it gains snipe on play the turn you play it. It's a base 3,500, so 3,500 snipe at 4 life. Pretty good. Good removal. At 3 or less life during your turn, which you clarified me about one day, it also gets plus 500. So on your turn, it's a 4K. So play it on 3 life. It's a 4K snipe, which we all love 4K snipes. And then 2 or less life, it also gains impact. So it gets stronger the less life you have. The strongest being a 4K impact snipe. You have 2 or less life when you play it. So these raids must wait until 4 or less life under all circumstances. You never want to play them raw either because they're base 3,500. These cards will always be late game for removal. So that's why I even bumped up to 8 raid targets to make sure I can always play them late, because they cannot be played any other time of the game.
Now, you also are playing a unique special in this deck. I'm saying playing because you're forced to play it. You have to. But it is surprisingly very good in this deck. Can you go over the unique element of Radiant Light?
So normally I do like the removals that are basic, silent at 3K. And if this character's here, silent at 5K. Standard stuff, classic. Everyone loves them.
Yeah.
This is a little different. This one is more similar to the Toshiro removal. It's a stun for 5Ks. However, if you're a 4 or less life, you remove it. So it's not character lock, which is great. You don't have to have a character out to worry about it. It's life lock. So that's the benefit of it. You'll always be able to play it based on your life. You don't have to hopefully find one of your characters to play down and waste an AP first in order to get to the 5K threshold. It will always sideline at 4 or less life, no matter who's out, as long as your life total. It does get a little bit of use early on for the stun aspect, but normally I like to save these myself for late game for the pure removal as well. But always being a 5K check is pretty nice, no matter what.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic card. I've gone up a lot recently with the Toshiro special. Surprise, I like my mid-range green decks. That's kind of my shtick. But yeah, even he's not in play. Okay, well, sticky, rest that. It's going to remain resting. Smash in. Really strong element. I really like these style of cards. Now, the last thing I want to go over, or second to last thing I want to go over, is these other cards in the deck that don't synergize specifically with it on the surface. We have the Silica 2-drop, we have the Lisbeth 3-drop, and we have the TC 2-drop. I've never seen SAO.
Tisei. I say Tisei, but I have no idea.
Sure. Let's go with Tisei. Can you go over what these cards play a role as inside of this deck?
So Tisei is first. I have a one of. I'm just a fan of cards that give 2 energy of active. Mm-hmm. I always like finding a way to throw those into my decks. I'm always a fan of those. I like Toshiro's scary, sure, but even with him running around, I still like having these type of cards in my decks. Oh, yeah. They're just so good. So I like having a one of just because of that. It's not a goddess. This is no name at all, actually. So it's just there. But just the 2 energy of active. That's the only reason it's there. Mm-hmm. Lisbeth, despite being ALO archetype, actually is a goddess search. So a top 3 for goddess. So it searches most of the deck. It won't search the UGOs or the Silicas or the Tisei, but all the Asunas, all the Sinons, and the Lifas. So all those are searchable by the Lisbeth. Oh. So being a top 3 searcher and then just having discard a card afterwards, which is pretty standard for most character searchers, is pretty great. Gives double energy, which is really nice. The deck only goes up to 4 energy maximum, but so having a double as a searcher to really have the backline set up for your raid target is really nice. And nice draw trigger, draws a card as well. So very useful card. Once this deck goes to pure goddess in the next future volume, this will bump up to 3, maybe even 4 for the searchers as it goes full goddess. But for now, I feel like having 2 to search goddesses is fine. To find more importantly, any raid targets I need to find that I don't already have it. Okay. The last one, and certainly not least, actually, this card, Silica. Let me tell you, Silica is the truth. TROF, truth. This card helps so much. What this card does is set to resting and gives something plus 1K. So we have a lot of 3Ks here, actually. We have the Sinon 3K that can snipe 2Ks. We have this Asuna that turns a 3K at 4 or less life. We have 3K Asuna here, your color trigger. We have Lisbeth 3K. So if they have to get their hands dirty and move up, they can all become 4K bodies with Silica buff, which is already good enough on its own. You have these 4Ks here that can become 5K. So if they have small targets in the field, they have like a 1500 or 2K. They hit an active trigger. You can still swing 5 and still get that swing through or claim their body. Also great. But the most important thing, and the reason I run 2 in this deck at all, is for Sinon. So how Sinon works is she starts at 3500 base power. She only becomes a 4K at 3 life. So at that point, if you want to snipe a 4K body with Sinon, if you don't have a Radiant Light special, you have to wait until you're at 3 life to play the Sinon. However, Silica lets you play at 1 life early. You buff her to 4500 and then snipe 4Ks that much earlier. Also, if you're already at 3 life, you can use this Silica to buff her to 5K and get rid of 5K bodies. Having a method to get rid of 5k bodies without having to use an actual special to do it is a big deal. Can't stress enough how helpful it is to have any card, not a special, to get rid of a 5k. So not many decks can actually do that in this game. So to have that ability really helps a lot. So Silica is truly an MVP. If it were Goddess, I'd run 4 immediately. Because it's ALO, because it's non-trigger, I can't run more than 2. But
hard to justify.
I love this card.
Yeah,
hard to justify, but I love the card. It does so much.
So the last thing that I wanted to touch on is you're playing a deck that is very difficult to manage because you have so many cards inside of it that say you pay a life in order to gain a benefit. How do you manage when to pay your life? Just as a quick tip for anybody who's newer to the game to pick up this and potentially be able to start winning with it, knowing how to manage your life to be able to squeeze out wins and when to value it and when not to.
So the bad news is the hardest part about playing this deck is that very question. When do I take life? When is it safe? When is it not safe? Am I taking too much life? Should I take more? And playing many games will help you come to those decisions. But that is the hard part. For me, my rule I've been using so far, piloting this deck, I only take a life if either I have nothing to play out of my hand, so I'll play Asuna to draw cards, or it will let me save a life later from a body. So let's say Leafa. Leafa is my prime suspect of taking my life because Leafa takes a life that becomes a 6k wall. So having a 6k wall for a turn will save me a swing, maybe even multiple swings if I had an active trigger. So I feel that's worthy to do that with Leafa, to just have a body established at the 6k wall, and then next turn have a 4k to swing back at them. Because they're not getting rid of this when it's a 6k.
Oh yeah, no.
Unless they play like a double snipe or something. So it's staying there.
Yeah.
So I feel that's worth it. If it's not that, my third rule is you only take my life when it will guarantee me a body on their board. So let's say I'm at 5 life. I'll take a life in order to be able to get down to 4 so that I can play a Radiant Light to sideline something at 4 life. So I can play a Sinon to snipe something. If taking my life will guarantee me getting rid of a threat, I will at that point also take a life. So generally I only take those. I try to stick to those rules, which generally means I take my own life once to twice a game. If it's only once, I'm happy with that. If my only one life is taken from me from a Leafa, that's even better because I got a body out of it and I still got a card for my life. If I have to play an Asuna, which it means my hand isn't that great, so it doesn't feel too great to play this to draw 2 cards because this is really, I want to leave this for emergencies. I don't want to do this often. It gets me 2 cards, yeah, sure. But it's not Burrows. It doesn't get me 3 cards.
Yeah.
So it's not as good. But those would be the rules I try to stick by to when I take life. And those rules are changing as I get more games in because, like I said, that's the hard part of the deck. I mean, it's only 4 energy maximum, the whole deck. So you don't have to worry about breaking that often. It's an aggressive deck. You're going to be swinging a lot with your little bodies to whittle them down for when your raiders come out to close games out. So the hard part is determining when to take life and when to not take life.
Hey, sounds like a deck that's very rewarding the more matches you get in because you just get to learn how to pilot it more and what are the bad situations and the good situations where these pay life mechanics can either net you value or end up costing you the entire game. Sounds like a very fun deck to play. Thank you.
Very fun.
Thank you very much, Tio, for breaking down the SAO Goddesses deck and sharing all your insight. Please go ahead, shout yourself out before we leave.
Make it easy for you. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Discord, all TioGDX, all the same. Easy to find me.
Super easy. And of course, you can find me down in the description below, as well as Tio. Thank you very much, and we will see you around next video. Goodbye.